Right, just doing a mid-morning top-up. I'm getting into a bit of a routine with fueling. I tend to use about only half a tank for a day, and if I top up mid-morning, once I'm down to half a tank, I can then do the rest of the day without thinking about it. As you'll see, all the colours change. So now yellow is petrol. So I'm approaching the Hungarian border, the border with Hungary, and I'm crossing not just anywhere, but I've come to this particular place because this has fascinated me for years. This is the border at which the Soviet Union Iron Curtain first fractured, where on one day in September 1989, nearly 700 East Germans forced their way across the border into Austria and therefore into the freedom of the West. And they escaped the regime they were trying to leave behind. And it was the actions really of the border guards on that day that set the tone of history, because at any other point of communist Europe trying to escape to the West, the border guard would have opened fire or beaten them back. But on this occasion, they were allowed to pass, and they made their way to the West. And this unassuming place preceded the falling of the Berlin Wall, which occurred in November 89, so 2 months later, but also the collapse of the Soviet Union. And for me, it symbolises how regime change happens, when the will of the people, or the confidence of the people, or perhaps the desperation of the people, exceeds the will of a regime, totalitarian regime, to enforce itself. And I think that's really poignant, because historic change happens not only in the big decisions taken by leaders, but in decisions taken by the masses who were risking their lives, and of the border guards who had to decide what the right thing to do was. And I find that fascinating. Here we are. And I'm going to visit this memorial site here, which is all about that moment. Oh gosh, it was really poignant. I can safely declare I've made it as far as Hungary, but this feels more important than that. It was here in September 1989, and we're looking from Hungary into Austria, here at this border and these border gates, where first of all 20 to 30 East Germans were forcing their way through and crossed into Austria. And that day alone, 660 East Germans managed to cross over. And it was down to a moment of history. A picnic was being organised between Austria and Hungary to mark a friendship and a thawing of relations. And it was here on the Hungarian side that the picnic was being arranged at 2 o'clock. And the border was going to open to Austrians and Hungarians for that short period of time, for 3 hours as it happens. And in that period, the 600 East Germans managed to cross. So this location just marks so much history of the Soviet era, and kind of a reminder of how easily we can divide ourselves, yet at the same time, how the will of the people to overcome that division really is possible. And of course, these border posts, guard lookouts, marked all the way along the Iron Curtain across Europe. I want to focus on the actions of one man at the moment, or perhaps the inactions of one man. Lieutenant Colonel Arpad Bella was the senior border guard on duty that day in September. And he knew the picnic had been arranged. He was expecting an orderly crossing of some Austrian dignitaries, possibly with their families. What he wasn't expecting was dozens of East Germans with prams and rucksacks and children approaching the border. And so his duty was to manage and maintain the border, not to allow people to cross who shouldn't. And as the East Germans approached, he says later, about 20 seconds to decide what to do. Would he order the guards to open fire? Would he beat back the East Germans trying to cross? And in the event, he showed restraint. At the time, he was investigated for serious breach of duty, and he said he didn't know whether he would last a week. As it happens, history had judged him very well. But what's really interesting is that he had to make that decision. He made history in that moment. And it kind of deserves the reverence that's been granted it. This is how history happens, bit by bit. And as I say, it's ordinary people in extraordinary circumstances, making extraordinarily difficult decisions. And they got it right. So I'm in Hungary, and my next destination is where I'm going to be doing a double nighter, and that's Heviz, which is a thermal lake resort. You might see a theme occurring here. And apparently the lake is quite warm, you can swim in it, and the hotel I've got is right on the lake.